Reading the Bible is essential, but to make it effective requires something more, at least more than we usually think of when we think of just reading the Bible. There's a lost skill, and not only among the church today, but from our culture in general. What is it that makes the difference between reading and studying the Bible? This is Looking Intently. I put out 3 short Bible study videos each week. I'm going through the book of James now, and if you've missed any, you can click this tag in the upper right to make sure you don't miss any more. Click the subscribe button, and then that bell icon in the lower right. Well, as I said, I put out Bible study videos. Today's is unique in the sense of it's a Bible study video about Bible study, about how to study the Bible. This passage in James we're looking at is really the theme passage for this ministry because it talks about this approach that I recommend and use. But I know there's several other approaches to Bible study. I'd love to hear the ones that you use, that you like. So put that in the comment below if you would. And I definitely want to check those out. James in verses 22 through 25 of chapter 1 says, "Do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. Anyone who listens to the word but does not do what it says is like someone who looks at his face in a mirror and after looking at himself goes away and immediately forgets what he looks like. But whoever looks intently into the perfect law that gives freedom and continues in it, not forgetting what they have heard but doing it, they will be blessed in what they do." This passage is usually used to emphasize the need for application. And you can see that. I think that is James' main focus here. He talks about this illustration of a mirror. I love it. A person looks in the mirror, and obviously he's implying there's something wrong. There's something on their face, their hair's out of place, but they don't do anything about it. It says they forget what they saw because they just walk away without making any changes. And so the lesson for us is, as Christians, we can read the Bible and learn the facts, but we won't be changed, we won't be transformed if we don't make application. If we don't hold our life up to what we see there in that passage and say, what needs to change in me? What am I missing? What do I need to get or do? And then get specific and apply it. The power for us to change is certainly God's power, but that power is only as effective as our application is specific. If I just say, God, help me be better, it doesn't give a lot to work with, versus when I get specific in a certain area and details, then God's power can work, His Holy Spirit can convict. Well, there's another element of Bible study in this passage. As I say, it is so often overlooked, and it's not more important than application necessarily, but I think it's more important to look at because we know some about application. We don't know about this. We don't hear about this. It's missing. It's lost, and not just in the church. Again, in our culture, how do you read a good book? Well, James brings it up in verse 25. He says, "But whoever looks intently into the perfect law that gives freedom." What's it mean to look intently? And to help understand it, it's interesting, this word that James uses is found 4 other times in the New Testament, and 3 of those other times it's used of a physical action, not studying the Bible, but like in John chapter 20, verses 5 and 11 are 2 of them, and actually the third one is a parallel passage to verse 5. In verse 5 it says, "And stooping to look in, John saw the linen cloths lying there, but he did not go in." This is when they've been told about the empty tomb, and John and Peter run there. John outruns him and gets there first, and so he stoops to look in at that tomb. Then later in verse 11, "But Mary Magdalene stood weeping outside the tomb, and as she wept, she stooped to look into the tomb." And so you get this idea of making an effort to look carefully. And beyond just seeing, when John did that, he sees immediately what's there, but, it's the idea of, I want to look close and pondering, what is there? What's this mean? These are 3 elements of Bible study that I talk about all the time. This one is the middle step. The first step is observation. And that is just reading the Bible. But even then, it's reading it carefully to see, all right, what's there? What happened or what was said? This one is talked about in verse 23, this step, and the word there means to take note of. Matter of fact, it's talking about, carefully reading, not just a glance, so much so that the ESV uses the phrase looking intently for that. You need to read the Bible and get the details, do that carefully, because what you're trying to find in that step is the main subject. What is this passage about? But then the middle step, the looking intently step, is reflection. It's asking why. All right, why is this passage here? Why did God want this in the Bible? Based on what I see, what happened or what was said, what does God want us to learn? What's the lesson he gives us about the main subject? What is it? He's saying specifically about that. What do I need to do with it? That's the third step, application. Hold my life up to what I see there, what the lesson is. All right, how do they compare? What do I need to do? What will I do? See, without this crucial middle step of reflection, if we do apply, we end up applying the observation. And stop and think about it. At the observation level, what happened? Well, Noah built an ark, Abraham left home, David killed a giant. So if we apply those, you see the problem, right? Well, that's it. We do see the problem there. And so we do reflect, maybe even without realizing it's a middle step. And so we, all right, there's got to be something underneath about trusting or obeying, something like that, right? Yeah, but it's always there, and sometimes we can miss it. And oftentimes the people who are most guilty of this, and I was included in this group, are preachers or teachers, because we come up with a topic we want to talk about, and then we go look for a passage that talks about it. But by doing that, we often have it say what we want it to say, and not necessarily something totally wrong, but it's not the main lesson of that passage that you see when you work through a book from beginning to end, as I recommend. Tell you what, I've got a bachelor's degree in Bible and a master's degree in theology. I've been preaching 30 years. Nothing has impacted my time in the Word more than seeing the need for this middle step of reflecting, getting the theme, getting the point, getting the lesson. I have an in-depth training on this. I'll put a link in the description, and I encourage you to check that out. I'm going to be doing a video pretty soon, and one of these Looking Intently videos that shows this approach. And when that's done, I'll put a link in this description as well. So ask yourself as we end and apply this, what is my approach to studying the Bible, reading the Bible, however you want to say it? What is it, and how intently do I look at the Bible as I do that? How intently do I look at it? What do I really get, or is it just a passing glance? Where is it on the scale from passing glance to looking intently? And then what can I do to improve? And as we see with good application, what will I do? Get specific about the how, the what. Get it all down there. Allow God then to work in you and through you, His Spirit to convict you. Now, what I'm talking about in this video is what I remind you at the end of every video. Be sure and read the good book like a good book.